Before they walk into marriage, before the vows are spoken, before the music begins to play, and before the world celebrates a union that seems destined and beautiful on the surface, there is something deeper happening in the unseen. Something quiet. Something sacred. Something that only God fully understands. Because while everyone else sees a wedding approaching, heaven sees a story unfolding, a story that includes you. And that is why this message exists. Not as a coincidence, not as random words crossing your path, but as a moment where your heart was meant to pause and listen carefully. Because before they step into that new chapter of their life, God has a message meant specifically for you, and it is a message that carries truth, comfort, and a hidden purpose that your heart may not fully understand yet. Right now you may feel a mixture of emotions that are difficult to explain. Maybe there is confusion in your chest, maybe there is a quiet ache you try to ignore, maybe there is a question that keeps echoing inside your mind late at night when everything around you becomes silent. You might be asking yourself why things happened the way they did, why someone who once felt so connected to your soul is now walking toward a life that seems to move further away from you. And in moments like these it is easy to believe that the story is over. It is easy to believe that what you felt meant nothing, or that you somehow misunderstood the connection that once felt so real. But God's message today asks you not to rush to those conclusions, because heaven sees far more than human eyes can see. What you experienced was not an illusion. The emotions you felt were not meaningless. The moments you shared were not accidents. Every connection that touches the soul happens for a reason that exists beyond human timing and beyond human control. Sometimes God allows two souls to cross paths not so they can remain together forever in the way people expect, but so they can awaken something inside each other that changes their lives forever. Sometimes a soulmate does not arrive to stay in the traditional sense. Sometimes they arrive to transform you, to teach you something sacred about love, patience, and faith. And that transformation becomes part of the divine plan that shapes the rest of your life. Right now the path ahead may feel uncertain, but God wants you to understand something important before they walk into marriage. Your story is not defined by what you lost. Your story is defined by what God is still preparing for you. Because when heaven writes a story, the ending is never limited to what the human heart expects in one specific moment. God's plans move across time in ways that are impossible for us to see clearly while we are standing inside the middle of the storm. There are chapters we cannot read yet, moments that have not unfolded, blessings that are still quietly forming in places our eyes cannot reach. And while you may feel like you are standing outside a door that has closed, heaven may actually be guiding you toward a path that leads somewhere far greater than the place you thought you wanted to remain. Before they walk into marriage, God wants your heart to release something heavy that you have been carrying. The weight of wondering what could have been. The weight of replaying old memories. The weight of asking questions that have no simple answers. Because when a soul holds too tightly to the past, it becomes difficult to see the miracles that are slowly approaching in the future. And God never intended for your heart to remain trapped inside a single chapter of your life. Your heart was created to grow, to expand, to discover deeper levels of love and purpose that unfold with time. Even now, while you are reading these words, something subtle may be shifting inside you. A quiet realization. A gentle understanding. A reminder that your story did not end when things changed, it simply moved into a different chapter that is still being written. God sees every tear that was shed in silence. God heard every prayer whispered in the middle of the night when no one else knew what you were feeling. Heaven is aware of every moment when you tried to be strong even though your heart felt fragile. And none of that pain was invisible. None of it was ignored. Every experience shaped you into someone stronger, someone wiser, someone more capable of understanding love in a way that many people never learn in their lifetime. Sometimes the greatest spiritual growth comes through the experiences that challenge us the most. Because those moments teach the soul how to trust God even when life does not follow the path we expected. And that kind of faith becomes a powerful force that guides your future in ways you cannot yet imagine. So before they walk into marriage, before the world celebrates what appears to be their final destination, God wants you to remember something profound. Their path is their path. Your path is your path. And both are guided by a wisdom that exists far beyond human understanding. The connection you once shared will always remain part of your journey, but it does not define the full story of who you are or what your life will become. God has not forgotten you. Heaven has not overlooked your heart. In fact, the love meant for you is still moving closer with every passing day, even if you cannot see it yet. Somewhere in the unfolding future there are moments waiting that will make sense of everything you experienced. There are conversations waiting that will heal the questions you carry today. There is a person somewhere whose soul will recognize yours in a way that feels peaceful instead of confusing, steady instead of uncertain, real in a way that requires no doubt or hidden pain. And when that moment arrives, you may look back at this chapter of your life with a completely different understanding. You may realize that God was protecting your heart in ways you could not recognize at the time. You may understand that certain doors had to close so the right one could open at exactly the right moment. Divine timing rarely follows human expectations, but it always moves with purpose. So today God's message is not meant to reopen old wounds. It is meant to free your heart from the belief that your story ended before it truly began. Because your life is still unfolding, your future is still being written, and heaven is still guiding you toward the love and purpose that were always meant for you. Before they walk into marriage, allow yourself to release the questions that have kept your heart restless. Trust that God sees the entire picture even when you can only see a small part of it. Trust that every experience in your life has been shaping you for something meaningful that is still approaching. And most importantly, trust that the love meant for your soul will never pass you by. What is truly meant for you cannot be stolen by timing, distance, or circumstance. It will find you in the moment when your heart is ready to receive it. So breathe, let the past rest where it belongs, and step forward into the next chapter of your life with faith instead of fear. Because the story God is writing for you is far from over, and the most beautiful part may still be waiting just ahead. And as this story continues to unfold, there is another truth God wants your heart to understand before you allow sadness or regret to define what this moment means. Because sometimes when we see someone walking toward a life that does not include us, our minds immediately begin to create a painful narrative. We start believing that we were not enough, that we were somehow overlooked, or that the connection we felt was simply one-sided. But God's message gently asks you to pause before accepting those thoughts as truth. Human understanding is limited, but divine purpose is never random. The reason certain souls cross paths cannot always be explained in the moment they happen. Sometimes two people meet not because their entire future will be shared, but because their encounter awakens something that prepares both of them for the lives they are meant to live. Your presence in their life may have been a moment of growth for them, just as their presence in your life awakened something powerful inside you. And even if the path ahead now looks different from what your heart once imagined, that does not erase the significance of what existed between you. God does not create meaningful connections carelessly. Every meeting of souls carries a lesson, a purpose, or a transformation that shapes the future in ways that are often invisible at first. Right now you might still be standing in the space between understanding and acceptance. It is the quiet place where memories appear unexpectedly, where certain songs remind you of moments you shared, where your mind revisits conversations and wonders if things could have unfolded differently. That place can feel heavy, but it is also a place where deep spiritual growth happens. Because it is here that the soul begins to learn the difference between holding on and trusting God's direction. Holding on keeps your heart tied to what was, but trusting God allows your heart to open to what can still be. And God never asks someone to release a chapter unless there is another one waiting to begin. Before they walk into marriage, Heaven wants you to realize that your value was never determined by whether someone stayed or left. Your worth has always been defined by the love, strength, and depth that God placed inside your soul long before you ever met them. Sometimes when people walk away or move toward another path, it can create the illusion that we somehow lost something essential. But the truth is that nothing meant for your life can truly pass you by. If something leaves, it is because its role in your story has reached the point where another part of your journey must begin. And while that transition may feel painful at first, it often becomes the doorway to a future that holds more peace, clarity, and authentic love than you were able to imagine during the earlier chapter of your life. Think about how many moments in life once felt confusing but later made sense when you looked back with new understanding. There were probably times when you thought something was the end of your happiness, only to realize later that it was actually the beginning of something better. God works through timing that humans rarely understand in the present moment. The heart wants answers immediately, but divine wisdom unfolds slowly so that every piece of the story can fall into place exactly where it belongs. Before they walk into marriage, the message God has for you is not about comparison, regret, or loss. It is about awakening your awareness to the fact that your life still holds incredible possibilities that have not yet appeared. Somewhere in the future there are people you have not met yet, experiences you have not lived yet, and love that has not revealed itself yet. And when those moments arrive, they will not require you to question your place in someone's life. They will not leave you wondering whether you were truly chosen. The love meant for your soul will feel peaceful instead of uncertain, mutual instead of complicated, and aligned with the path that God prepared for you long before this moment ever existed. One day you may even look back at this chapter with gratitude instead of pain. Because the experience you went through taught your heart how to recognize the difference between emotional attachment and true divine alignment. It taught you how deeply you are capable of loving, how resilient your spirit is even during moments of heartbreak, and how powerful faith can become when life refuses to follow the path you expected. Those lessons are not small things. They are the kind of wisdom that shapes the way you will love in the future, the way you will protect your peace, and the way you will recognize the person who is truly meant to walk beside you when the time comes. Right now, the most important thing God asks from you is patience with your own healing. Do not rush yourself to forget, and do not force your heart to pretend that nothing mattered. Healing is not about erasing memories. It is about allowing those memories to settle into a place where they no longer control your emotions or your sense of self-worth. With time, the sharpness of what you feel today will soften. The questions that once kept you awake will slowly lose their urgency. And in that quiet space of acceptance, you will begin to notice something remarkable happening inside you. The same heart that once felt broken will start to feel stronger, calmer, and more open to the life that still lies ahead. Because your story was never meant to end in sorrow. Your story is still moving forward toward experiences that will bring you joy in ways you cannot predict today. And when the right person eventually enters your life, you will understand why certain connections had to remain part of the past. You will recognize that God was guiding you not toward temporary happiness, but toward a love that aligns completely with your soul's journey. A love that feels steady, honest, and free from the confusion that sometimes surrounds relationships that are not meant to last forever. Until that day arrives, God invites you to focus on rediscovering the beauty of your own life. There are dreams you have not fully pursued yet, talents you may not have explored yet, and moments of happiness waiting in places you have not looked. Your purpose in this world extends far beyond one relationship or one chapter of emotional connection. The world still needs your kindness, your creativity, your compassion, and the unique energy that only your soul carries. When you begin to invest your energy into living fully again, something extraordinary starts to happen. The emptiness that once felt overwhelming begins to transform into space for new opportunities, new friendships, and new forms of love to appear naturally. Life has a way of surprising us when we stop trying to control every outcome and instead trust that God is guiding us toward the experiences meant for our growth and happiness. So as they move closer to their wedding day and the world celebrates their new beginning, allow your heart to step into a new beginning of its own. Not one built on bitterness or regret, but one built on faith, self-respect, and trust in God's greater plan for your life. Their story is unfolding in one direction, but your story is unfolding in another direction that is equally meaningful and filled with possibilities you have not yet seen. And the truth is that your path may eventually lead you somewhere even more beautiful than the destination you once believed was meant for you. God's message today is simple yet powerful. Do not measure the value of your life by the chapters that did not last forever. Measure it by the strength you gained, the love you were capable of giving, and the faith you chose to keep even when life felt uncertain. Those qualities will guide you toward the future that heaven is preparing for you right now, even if you cannot see it yet. So lift your heart gently out of the past and place it in God's hands with trust. The story is not over. The journey is not finished. And somewhere ahead, beyond this moment of confusion and reflection, there is a chapter waiting that will remind you why your path had to unfold exactly the way it did, and as time continues to move forward, there is still a deeper layer of God's message that your heart needs to hear, because sometimes the hardest part of a story like this is not simply watching someone move on. It is learning how to move forward yourself while carrying memories that once felt like the center of your world. The human heart naturally holds on to moments that felt meaningful, especially when those moments carried hope, connection, and the quiet belief that something lasting was being built between two souls. You may remember the small conversations that once felt significant, the way certain words stayed in your mind long after they were spoken, or the way your heart recognized something familiar in their presence that felt almost impossible to explain. Experiences like that do not disappear overnight, and God does not expect them to. Healing is not about pretending that the past never existed. Healing is about allowing the past to transform into wisdom rather than pain. And that transformation takes time, patience, and faith that your life still holds meaning beyond the chapter that once felt so important. Before they walk fully into their marriage and into the future that awaits them, God wants you to understand something about your own journey that may not be obvious right now. The depth of love you felt was not wasted energy. It was proof of the kind of heart you carry within you. A heart capable of deep connection, empathy, and emotional truth. Many people spend their entire lives unable to feel that level of sincerity in their relationships. But you experienced it, and that means your soul has the capacity to love in a way that is rare and powerful. The challenge now is not to close that heart because of what happened, but to allow it to grow wiser while still remaining open to the possibilities that God may place in your future. Sometimes when a person experiences disappointment in love, the natural reaction is to build emotional walls for protection. It can feel safer to avoid vulnerability than to risk being hurt again. But God did not create your heart to live behind walls forever. Your heart was designed to experience connection, growth, and the kind of love that aligns with the purpose written for your life. And even though the path that once seemed promising has now changed direction, that does not mean your destiny has become smaller. In fact, many times the opposite is true. When God redirects someone's path, it is often because there is something greater waiting ahead that requires a different journey than the one you originally imagined. Right now it might feel like you are standing at the edge of uncertainty, but uncertainty is often where the most meaningful transformations begin. It is in these moments that people rediscover who they are beyond the relationships that once defined them. You may start noticing parts of yourself that had been quiet for a long time. Dreams that were placed on hold, interests that faded into the background, or strengths you did not realize you possessed. When the heart begins to heal, it often reconnects with parts of life that had been overlooked. And through that process, a new sense of identity begins to form, one that is not dependent on another person's presence to feel complete. Before they walk into marriage, God invites you to reflect not only on what you lost but also on what you gained through this experience. You gained emotional depth, you gained self-awareness, and you gain the ability to recognize the difference between attachment and alignment. These are lessons that many people only learn after years of confusion in relationships. But your journey has already started teaching you those truths now. And those truths will protect your heart in the future while guiding you toward the kind of love that does not require constant uncertainty to survive. There is also something else that God wants you to remember during this chapter of your life. Just because someone is moving toward a marriage does not mean that your connection with them was meaningless or that your role in their life was insignificant. Every person who enters our lives leaves some form of impact, whether it is temporary or lifelong. Sometimes the purpose of a connection is simply to change the direction of someone's heart for a certain period of time. Perhaps you helped them see the world differently. Perhaps you reminded them of a part of themselves they had forgotten, perhaps your presence gave them strength during a moment they needed it. And even if the future now leads them somewhere else, the influence of what you shared may remain a quiet part of their story forever. That is something the human mind often forgets when focusing only on the ending of a chapter. But heaven sees the entire picture, including the invisible ways in which two souls can shape each other's journeys without remaining together forever. As days turn into weeks and weeks slowly turn into months, you will begin to notice subtle changes in how your heart carries these memories. What once felt sharp and overwhelming will gradually become softer and more distant. Certain thoughts that once appeared every day will start appearing less frequently. And eventually there will come a moment when you realize that your life has quietly begun expanding again beyond the boundaries of that past connection. New experiences will begin to fill your time, new people will enter your circle, and new possibilities will appear in places you never expected to find them. That is how life gently reminds us that no single chapter holds the entire story of who we are. God designed the human journey to be full of unfolding seasons, each bringing its own lessons and opportunities for growth. So before they walk into marriage and step fully into their own new season, allow yourself to step into yours as well. A season of rediscovery, healing, and quiet preparation for the future that is still forming in front of you. Your heart may not feel completely ready today, and that is perfectly okay. Healing is not a race. It is a gradual process that unfolds naturally when you allow yourself to move forward one small step at a time. Some days will feel easier than others. Some days memories might return unexpectedly. But with each passing moment, your strength will grow stronger than the sadness that once tried to define this chapter of your life. And eventually you will look back and see how far you have traveled emotionally and spiritually from the place where you once stood. When that day arrives, you may realize something profound about the message God placed in your path today. It was never meant to keep you looking backward. It was meant to guide you forward with faith. Because your story is still unfolding, and the chapters that remain unwritten may hold more beauty, peace, and authentic love than you can imagine right now. God's plan for your life has never been limited by one moment, one person, or one path that did not continue the way you expected. Your destiny is still moving, still growing, and still leading you toward experiences that will one day make sense of everything you went through. So lift your heart with quiet courage and trust that the future is not empty. The future is simply waiting for you to walk into it with faith that what God has prepared for you will arrive at the perfect time. And now, as this message reaches its final chapter, there is one last truth that God wants to place gently inside your heart before this story closes. Because every journey like this eventually arrives at a moment where the soul must decide what it will carry forward into the future. You can carry pain, questions, and the feeling that something important slipped away, or you can carry the wisdom, growth, and strength that this chapter quietly gave you. Both paths exist, but only one of them will lead your life toward peace. God never intended for your heart to remain trapped in a memory that belongs to the past. Your heart was created to keep moving, to keep discovering, and to keep experiencing the beautiful surprises that life can bring when you trust that the story is bigger than the chapter you once believed was everything. Before they walk fully into marriage and begin the life that awaits them, Heaven wants you to understand that their path and your path were never meant to be measured against each other. Comparison is a burden the soul was never designed to carry. When you compare your journey to someone else's, it becomes easy to believe that you somehow lost a race that you were never meant to run in the first place. But the truth is that every soul has a different timeline, a different direction, and a different purpose unfolding quietly beneath the surface of everyday life. Their story is simply moving into one kind of chapter, while your story is preparing for another kind of chapter that has not yet revealed its full beauty. Right now you may still feel moments where memories appear unexpectedly, like echoes of a time when things felt hopeful and uncertain at the same time. That is natural. The human heart remembers what mattered to it. But memories do not have to control the direction of your future. Over time, those memories will begin to feel less like open wounds and more like quiet reminders of how deeply you are capable of caring about another soul. And instead of feeling regret, you may eventually feel gratitude that you experienced something meaningful, even if it was not meant to last forever. Not every connection in life is designed to become a lifelong partnership. Some connections exist to awaken your heart, to challenge your beliefs about love, and to prepare you for the kind of relationship that will one day align completely with your life's purpose. God understands the moments when you felt confused, when you wondered whether things could have turned out differently, and when you asked silent questions that seemed to have no answers. None of those thoughts were ignored. Every prayer, every tear, and every quiet moment of reflection was seen by the one who understands your heart more deeply than anyone else ever could. And sometimes God allows time to pass not because your story is forgotten, but because certain things must grow slowly before they are ready to appear in your life. The future that belongs to you is still forming. Somewhere beyond this moment there are people you will meet who will appreciate your presence in ways that feel natural and effortless. There are conversations you will have that bring laughter back into your life. There are opportunities waiting that will remind you how much potential still lives inside you. And one day, perhaps when you least expect it, someone may enter your life whose heart recognizes yours in a way that feels calm rather than confusing. A love that does not leave you wondering where you stand. A love that feels steady, mutual, and guided by the same divine timing that brought every other meaningful moment into your journey. When that day comes, you may look back at this chapter of your life with a completely different perspective. What once felt like a painful ending may start to look like an important turning point. You may realize that if things had unfolded exactly the way you once hoped, you might never have discovered the strength, patience, and spiritual growth that came from learning to trust God's plan even when it did not match your expectations. Life has a mysterious way of revealing its meaning only after we have walked far enough away from the moment that once confused us. And when you reach that place of clarity, you will see that nothing in your journey was wasted. Every emotion you felt helped shape the person you are becoming. Every challenge strengthened your ability to face the future with courage. Every moment of faith built a deeper connection between your heart and the guidance that God offers when life becomes uncertain. Before they walk into marriage and step into their next chapter, allow yourself to quietly step into yours as well. Let this be the moment when you release the belief that your happiness depended on one specific outcome. Let this be the moment when you trust that the love meant for you will arrive in its own time, in its own way, guided by a plan far greater than anything you could design on your own. God's message was never meant to keep you looking back at what cannot be changed. It was meant to remind you that your life is still unfolding with purpose, possibility, and hope. The road ahead may not be fully visible yet, but that does not mean it is empty. It simply means the next part of your story is waiting to reveal itself step by step as you continue moving forward with faith. So take a deep breath and allow your heart to feel peace with the chapter that is now closing. Bless the memories for what they taught you. Thank the experience for the wisdom it gave you. And then lift your eyes toward the future that God is still preparing for your life. Because the most beautiful truth of all is this: your story did not end here. This was only one chapter in a much larger journey. And somewhere ahead, beyond the horizon you cannot yet see, there are moments of love, joy, and fulfillment waiting to welcome you exactly as you are. The path is still open. The future is still bright. And God is still guiding every step of your story toward the life that was always meant to be yours.